Welcome to On-Site Gallery. We are OCAD University's public and professional gallery space. My name is Linda Columbus. I'm the Programs and Community Coordinator here at the gallery. So first, I'd like to start by acknowledging the ancestral and traditional territories of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Huron-Wendat, who are the original owners and custodians of the land on which we stand and create. The territory was the subject of the Dishwood One Spoon Wampum Belt Treaty, an agreement between the Iroquois Confederacy and the Ojibwe and allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. This territory is also covered by the Upper Canada Treaties, and we're grateful to have the opportunity to work in this territory. So a little bit about On-Site Gallery. As I mentioned, we are the public professional gallery of OCAD-U and an experimental curatorial platform for art, design, and new media. So currently on view in the space that you're here, until April 14th is a group exhibition called How to Breathe Forever. That underlines the importance and interconnectedness of air, animals, land, plants, and water. The belief that everything in the universe has a place and deserves equal respect is the core of this exhibition, and positions our relations with others, including the quote, natural world, as active and reciprocal. So at the front desk, you're welcome to take an exhibition brochure, which looks like this. It has an essay by the curator, artist biographies, and a list of our other free public events. So for each of our exhibitions, we develop a complimentary public program that teases out some of the themes in our show. So we're very fortunate tonight to have Mary Ann Barkhouse, one of the exhibiting artists in How to Breathe Forever, and Susan Fleming, a nature filmmaker, here tonight to talk about the intersections of their interests and practice when it comes to animals and their roles, effects, and responsibilities in relation to species. So Mary Ann Barkhouse was born in Vancouver, BC, but has strong ties to both coasts, as her mother is from the Nipkish band Coggill First Nation of Alert Bay, BC, and her father is of German and British descent from Nova Scotia. As a result of her personal and family experience with land and water stewardship, Barkhouse's work examines ecological concerns and intersections of culture through the use of animal imagery. And you can see her work, if you haven't already, on the other side of the gallery. So inspired by issues surrounding empire and survival, Barkhouse creates installations that evoke consideration of the self as a response to history and environment. She currently resides in the Haliburton Highlands of Ontario. And Susan Fleming here is an independent Canadian filmmaker who has been producing and directing films since 1989. Her award-winning documentaries and television series have been broadcast across the globe on a variety of networks, including the CBC, TV Ontario, the Discovery Channel, National Geographic, PBS Nature, Planet, ARTE France and Germany, SBS Australia, and NHK Japan. Her films have taken viewers deep underground to explore the secret world of ants, to high up in the treetops to marvel at nests stuffed full of baby crows, and out on a limb in the dark of night to witness the tentative first steps of baby raccoons. Ever curious, her life quest is to explore this weird world of ours, a place she believes where the familiar, if truly examined, is often revealed to be strangely alien. So, just to give you a breakdown on what tonight is going to look like, we're going to start with a presentation by Mary Ann Barkhouse. Then we'll have a presentation by Susan Fleming with a short film screening. This will be followed by a conversation between Mary Ann and Susan, and then we'll open it up to the audience for some questions and answers. All right, so I will pass it off to Mary Ann.
Oh, I get to start?
Always good. Or not. And I just, when she was talking, describing my biography, I was thinking a lot of people are not familiar with the Coggill First Nation. Nowadays it's also referred to as Papaluwa, which basically means the Papalit-speaking people. But I think in the past month, everyone knows a very famous Coggill woman who is Jody Rabel Wilson. And my uncle used to be married to her aunt. So it's just one of those small worlds where somebody's like, oh, you know, girl. so proud of it. Anyway, so what I was going to do, I'm going to try and just give a quick overview of some of my influences and things that have gone into, informed and inspired my artwork over the years. And then to show some of the resulting work as well. And so looking forward to it. We purposely haven't spoken too much because we're going to get all, we'll have it all done before we actually get to it in front of all of you. So I will show you some, so that's of course in Dog We Trust. That's one of my terriers from years ago. I am from I'm a bi-coastal kind of a person as far as my mom's from BC and her family were fishermen, so that's my grandfather in Willard Bay and Trent Steps. And then my father's fathers, my grandmothers both died very young, so I didn't know them very much, but I do know my grandfather very well. And so this idea of stewardship around land and water. So from the water component, of course, is my grandfather, Fred Cook. And there he is trying to teach me something way back as I'm the senior staff on the boat. So he was a commercial salmon fisherman. He was with the Native Brotherhood, the fishing union that they had. So he had a really large seine boat. And probably about a crew of about 5. So on the boat, and I used to work on the boat when I was a teenager. I started being a cook. Those lucky guys got to have food that a teenager cooked for them. So they were very tough men indeed. But the things that you see that I saw when I was out on the boat was just amazing. I mean, if you get the boat going fast enough, the dolphins would race with the boat. And then the killer whales, which were all around. Of course, the killer whales are following the salmon just as the entire fishing fleet is too. And the whales would get in the nets and out again. So they'd eat, sometimes you'd see the fish come out and they'd have just like half-eaten fish bobbing on the water, and then the whales. So the fishermen actually hated the killer whales. But then there'd be things like, and that was actually before I was on, but the seals sometimes, my grandfather had a soft touch for animals. So the seal wasn't doing too well, so he brought it up and he was feeding it. That was when he was like herring 1 year. And then that's my grandfather on the other side in Nova Scotia. Apparently he's trying to tempt a moose with some treat. So he had a 300-acre farm. It was sort of a good old-fashioned farm, the way you imagine farms would be. And that's what I kind of grew up with as far as the hens are all walking around in the farmyard and Cascade. Dairy cattle, and as well as a pulp mill. So from them, I guess those were my first experiences with animals, domestic and wild, and that helped sort of inform the opinions I had. I just thought everyone grew up driving from BC or Nova Scotia every year, and that everyone is, and it's like, oh, this is kind of weird. So there I am interacting with a species in Vancouver Stanley Park. So just that's a bit about my own experiences growing up. But from the artistic side, my mother's from a family of well-known carvers. This is Charlie James. He was a very well-known carver in the late 1800s, probably early 1900s, and he taught several other people in the family to carve as well. So I'll just say that when I said that I was interested in going to art college, my mother didn't freak out. She thought, oh, it's family business, kind of artwork. So that was Charlie James, and this is Mungo Martin. That was his stepson. And this is Mungo just working away in the studio. So Charlie, Mungo, and also my aunt Ellen have worked all over the world. So if you go to any museum, not only in Canada but worldwide, you will see totem poles and ceremonial objects that they have carved. So this is just an example of one. It's the totem pole that's in Ottawa. It's on Baseline Road, outside of the Boy Scouts. And there's a beaver in the bottom. I have a fondness for beavers. I love the way that he carves the beavers with holding their tail very ceremonial fashion. This is Ellen Neal, so she was Charlie's granddaughter and my mother's aunt, and my mother went to live with her when she was growing up at high school in Vancouver. So again, this was parts of my family have grown up accepting artwork and also being, I think it's the family business, I guess. So there you go, there's the family working on one of the poles. That's actually Ellen's family working on a totem pole that's in Stratford. I was going to say Kitchener, I don't know why, but there you go. So then my habitat now, which informs when you look at my artwork, you go, oh, okay, no. I don't live in the Beaver Lodge, but that is in my backyard, probably about 40 feet from my back door. So when I first moved into my house, there was just a tiny trickle of water, and then a couple of years later, beavers moved in, refurbished a dam, and the water level went up about 4 feet in the space of 2 weeks. But with the water level going up, at first I panicked, I won't lie. But then all kinds of other critters show up, like moose. So these are all taken in my backyard from my ducks and deer. And the perpetrators there, the beavers, and the beaver by the back duck. Probably in March. In March there should be daffodils, not snow. That's what I say. Herons. So owls hang around the bird feeder, of course, although they may probably do this in cities too. So a lot of these animals are, even though I live up in Halbert, it's not really that far away. It's not like deepest, darkest wilderness or anything, but the animals that you would encounter within urban situations are very much similar, except occasionally moose come into the city too. So that's what my backyard looks like now, which is beautiful. It wasn't what I was expecting. And wintertime, and there's deer punching each other because everyone loves sunflower seeds. So that gives you another issue about animals and why they're attracted. I mean, that's a whole evening in itself as far as the food and why animals are coming in and interacting, sometimes positively, sometimes negatively with people in, well, not just the city, everywhere. So now you see, well, yeah, what about your art? Well, here's some art. So that's a piece of sovereign. So that came from the Boreal Baroque exhibition. And that exhibition, the inspiration for that was, I was thinking about the different types of survival strategies animals have for living in this climate. And I am a very poor species in this climate, I have to say. That the strategies they have evolved to do from migrating to hibernating to all kinds of different things, just that idea of them getting into their ecological niche so beautifully. So that's the I came to the idea of creating this furniture which created specifically, some of them were created specifically for the animals that are sitting on them. And so it wasn't so much about trying to anthropomorphize about these animals, but more about to show how comfortable they are in their setting. So that's pieces bronze and velvet and bleach. Then the piece in the foreground is the skins of the father. So again, looking at issues of history and natural history, and with the beavers, one thing that I had read, or theory I read, was that the beavers were almost extirpated, almost extinct in the mid-1800s. But they came back, as we know now, but they think that one of the factors that helped the beavers to survive supposedly is the fact that beaver hats went out and silk hats were in. So there's little silk beavers sitting on the silk. Trees for coyote, again going to this idea of food sources for animals, and especially animals that are as highly adaptive as a coyote to having a very Catholic taste, as they say. They'll eat everything from gum to bowls to who knows what. So anyway, that's another part we can speak about, but I'll just wanted to show some of the pieces. So that piece is, so I also wanted to say that while I do all the sculpture myself, I also work with a lot of artists in realizing some of these pieces. So sometimes you see glass where I work with glass artists. I'll create the sculpture, but then they do the casting of glasses. maybe also. So. And then on to further to the idea of survival in our northern climate. This piece is called Vesper, and so those are cast glass bats. I cast a bat chandelier, as it were, and they're there. So I was for that the white nose syndrome, it was called. Was just becoming known. I did this piece in the sort of towards the mid 2000s, and it moved rapidly across North America and wiped out and it's continuing to wipe out massive amounts of the bat population. Of course, some of them that hibernate here, they're all hibernating in the one cave, and of course one gets it just like a flu, one gets it. And so the virus, as I understand it, is that the way that it kills them is that it takes so much for a bat, if it wakes up in the middle of its hibernation cycle, it uses up all that energy that it needs in order to get to when it's warm again. And if it wastes it with this, wastes energy waking up, which I guess is what the white nose syndrome does, is one of the things it does to them, then that's it, they don't survive. Okay, and then there's a bat, and sometimes my work is a little political. This piece is called Red Rover, and that's a map of the coast where the Northern Gateway Pipeline would have come through to Kitimat, which is a little further north from where my mother's reserve is. But years ago there was an oil spill in the area of Willard Bay, and I remember what that looked like. And also that particular pipeline, and I know pipelines are highly contentious. I drive a car, we all use fuel, but where this was going to empty out onto the coast was one of the most treacherous areas, like difficult to navigate as far as the boats coming in and out that were moving product. So, of course, I had my 2 cents in there. And so this is what I said with the poodles and the wolves. And my interpretation of this isn't that the poodles or the wolves represent any one group of people, so like any one group of people. It's not supposed to be native, not anything. It's more about the interests of the land versus the interests of industry, and how that does or does not work out, and how this game, of course, is being played out as we speak, every year. That's a whole other topic, or that'll be for the next. And then people say, well, Mary, I do love Qigong and a general idea, and there are group that I've grown up with as well. And while some people have thought that the poodles were an homage to GI, I would love that to be so, but this is where I get my ideas. That's my dog now that I have. He's a hand-me-down poodle that needed a home, so I took him in. So that's some of my indoor work. Here's some of my public artwork that I've done. This is a piece from Markham. It's called Quarry. So again, it's not quite as, I guess, cut and dried as Interests of Man as the past piece with Red Rover, but looking at the works of man versus the works of nature. So in this, there's some stonework. Unfortunately, I didn't include, maybe I did. The stonework, elaborate stonework, which was inspired by some of the parterres at Versailles. We're going, well, that's another long story, related. So it's this highly orchestrated, formal stonework, and into the midst of it is this erratic from the area. And then there's several dogs that were created, generally bred by our European aristocracy, to do the hunting dogs, like the sighthound, scenthound, and a go-to-ground dog, like a terrier. So I thought, no matter what we make dogs look like, they all react the same way to a squirrel. And there they are. And there's, like, that's one of my friends' dog. And then, of course, this is someone's children playing with one of the dogs. And of course, I just knew that was going to happen. This is one of the pieces that's actually here in Toronto over at Joel Weeks Park, sort of in the Queen and Broadview area. There's actually three components to this, and I did this in conjunction with another artist, Michael Belmore. This piece was one that, so the imagery was, I guess, inspired by things that, the natural history of Toronto. So there's past and present. So on some of the other rocks, there's image of salmon and otters. There's a fox, there's beaver, things like that. And of course, it's Toronto, there's the squirrels worshiping the acorn. This is a piece of settlement. So this coyote that's here, that you see in Treats for Coyote, has appeared in different iterations. It's a similar coyote. It's a limited edition series, but I have him interacting with different characters. So this is a piece in St. Catharines. It's with a badger, so they're both bronze, and they're planted, and they're within a garden area that I had planted to be the approximate dimensions of the footprint of a settler's home during the war, the time around the War of 1812. So I was asked to create a temporary piece to coincide with that whole time in history, 1812. And I was like, at first I thought, what do I know about it? Oh, wait, coyotes and badgers. So for me, the War of 1812, I was thinking about the idea of unlikely alliances and the different alliances that came together, like human alliances that happened that played itself out during that conflict. And then I was thinking, oh, a coyote and a badger, kind of, they do work cooperatively sometimes. There's not very many badgers left to cooperate with coyotes in Canada anymore. But I thought that was sort of an interesting correlation. So that's what informed this, the imagery for this piece. They are. Thank goodness you're here. Because that's absolutely true. And the coyote, as far as I can tell, as I know, is a North American animal. You find wolves over in Europe, but you don't find coyotes. So, and the planting with that particular piece was inspired by the First Nations of the Americas. So they were all plants that were domesticated and developed and traded within the First Nations. So there was Three Sisters planting with corn, bean, squash, and then there was a border of quinoa all around. Although the quinoa didn't grow as tall as the quinoa that I've seen down in South America, because quinoa down in South America is gigantic, and mine is kind of puny. I don't know, maybe the soil is too good. They say that it likes really bad soil. And in St. Catharines, conditions were probably too good. Okay, and then I know this piece is in front, is at Carleton University in Ottawa, and its title is Locavore. And that's in front, it's in front of the library. It's originally part of an exhibition which was Human Nature.
No,
Thank you.
Was it human? Yes. Oh my God.
I know. I haven't.
Let's go with Human Nature, yeah.
Okay, so, and Corinna was the curator for that. So this was a piece that started out as a temporary work, just like Settlement did actually. They were temporary works, and then once it got there, or once the idea was manifested there, it's like, no, we'd like to keep it. So then they arranged to keep it. But with this piece, of course, for me, there's an inversion of what you would think would be the likely power structure between a predator and a prey animal. And within the stones that are around there, there's imagery sandblasted in there of plants that were significant for the hare's diet, as well as some of the First Nations people's diet, which isn't really, you can't see it too well there, but I was thinking of how the things that are the driving forces in nature are often not what we immediately think they would be. And I'm just going to leave it there, because there's lots more to discuss on that point. But I just thought that the idea of nature as an archive, like animals and plants, and that whole thing is just like this living archive that we are still continually learning from. And I thought that being in front of the library at Carleton University in the quad was the perfect place in front of an archive. And there's this piece is Harvest. This was shown originally at the Bronx, in the Bronx at Wave Hill Gallery. And again, another one of these anniversaries. It was the 400th anniversary of Henry Hudson discovering that part of the New World on behalf of the Dutch. So I was looking at this idea of things that have survived and persevered. So once again, the beaver as a symbol of survival. That was also the year 2009 was also the year that they first saw signs of beavers in the Bronx River after 400 years. So when the Europeans first came to that part of North America, in that little area, it only took them 8 or 9 years to extirpate several of the fur-bearing species. Like there used to be apparently a lovely little sea otter or sea newt or something like that gone. And just how quickly these things happen. And they say, you think there's millions of them, and they go from millions to zero pretty quickly. And also with the coyote, I was thinking of if there's any animal that people have tried to kill more than a coyote, I don't think there is one, because they've been gassed and shot and poisoned, and there are more coyotes now apparently than there were 500 years ago. So I thought, there's manifest destiny for you. So on the plates, it's meant to look like the leaves of water lilies when the wind hits them on the pond. So that's why they're kind of sort of rippling. They probably wouldn't be really useful plates, I don't know. But on them I had written or inscribed the names of the Lenape Confederacy, which was also one of the first First Nations to be extirpated from their area of New York State and in the area. Just quickly some other outdoor pieces. That's Grace, that's outside the Robert McLaughlin Gallery. 3 beavers grooming. Beavers spend a lot of time grooming at home. From first-hand experience. And the way when they're grooming, and they kind of scrunch out the water from their fur. Sorry, it's kind of funny. And this is a piece that I just completed that's for the city of Edmonton. It's in Queen Elizabeth Park. It's called Rain. Again, looking at the different, the geological time as well as our present time, and the different, I guess, the reign of different species through an area. And in that area, as they were building things, not too long before, probably a couple of years, maybe 5 years before, they had unearthed more remains of Edmontosaurus and Albertosaurus. So Edmontosaurus is like a hadrosaur with an dactyl dinosaur. So that's why that's the imagery that's all around this rock. So there's the Albertosaurus, which is like a small T-Rex on the front. And of course there's a coyote on the top. There are lots of coyotes in the Edmonton that would be. There's the hadrosaur. And trilobite. And then Strophiomimmus, a bird type of dinosaur. And of course, at the bottom behind is a hare. Again, with some plants that were significant to the hares as well as the First Nations of that particular area. So the plants that were at Carleton University and some of the plants, there was some overlap, but there were different species of plants depicted there. And it's all granite and bronze. And then this is a piece that's at the museum, UCB Museum of Civilization, now the Canadian Museum of History. It's called the Matsala, which in Pakwala means to travel in a boat together. It's based upon a story that my grandfather had told me many years ago of how he had helped a wolf get across a treacherous stretch of water on the coast. And he was not in a big ceremonial canoe when he was doing it. He was in the skiff, like rowing. And since then I've heard so many stories and seen so much evidence of animals jumping into boats. So of course, when I'm down, I just accept whatever he said, and went, well, yes, of course, that's what happens, wolves will jump into the boat. Then I get older, and I go, I don't know, and then I see all kinds of places with wolves, because I think what happens, not just wolves, but deer and things like that too, they're swimming, and they swim quite a bit between the mainland and all the islands that are up and down the coast, but, maybe they miscalculate, they get tired. This is farther than I thought. How many times has that happened to us when we're walking somewhere? This is farther than we thought. So they jump into a boat. So this was a wonderful commission to get. I worked with Leanne Martin, who I think is getting the Governor General Arts Award, which is fantastic. Because it's right across from Parliament Hill. So we come full circle to Jody Wilson-Raybould. Because I thought, for me, that story at its root was about having compassion and having lateral thought and critical thinking to help something else in need. And I thought if there's ever a place to have a piece about that, it's right across from Parliament Hill. So this idea that underlies some of my work about trying to understand things in nature, in our surroundings more, trying to understand each other more, and trying to come to some sort of agreement where we can all go forward is great. And I thought, if these two terriers can do it, we can do it too.
I am so excited about your work and so inspired by the gift. There's just so many levels to it. So it's just going to be so untechnical, but I'm going to just talk for a little bit before I do that. And I'm going to apologize, I'm just getting on the phone, so I'm going to do a lot of breaks for drinks. Go like that well. So I'm a nature filmmaker, and I've been doing it for 30 years. And I think I'm the luckiest ever alive, that I get to travel all over the world and just watch animals and film animals. And I'm completely inspired by everything I see. I can't believe how they make a living and being able to go to Wisconsin, Missouri, up to the top of the Rocky Mountains and watch all this diversity of life that we have around us and see how they exploit the world. It just feels every day is an adventure, and it's fantastic. When I tell people I'm a nature filmmaker, they often think I spend a lot of time on safari in Africa, because that's what nature filmmakers do. And they're really surprised to learn that that's not what I do. Like I take my inspiration very much from the world around me. And I'm really inspired by the creatures that we see every day, or don't see, but move around us every day. And what's really surprised me in the last 30 years is how little we know about the animals we share our world with. We know way more about giraffes than we know about quolls. We know way more about, these fantastic birds that are extinct than we know about crows. And I find that really shocking. Every time I go start into a film and start researching it, and I try to find the scientists who study this, it's surprising for urban wildlife how few people have really studied the animals that are around us. So increasingly, I find my interest lies both in life and in work towards animals like crows, coy wolves, or raccoons. And people tell me all the time they're just shocked that there's so many of these animals around in cities, in major cities around the world. And I think, really? And then I realized I live on a farm. I live on a horse farm, an hour north of here. And every morning, at the crack of dawn, I'm out mucking the stables and I'm knocking out squirrels and mice and, tracking in the winter with my dog and following, animals that are moving about. So I'm really aware of everything around me. But when we move into cities, we stop being aware of our surroundings. We stop appreciating the animals that let us live in their world. And so for me as a filmmaker, I think that's my goal, is really to have people appreciate the world that animals live in and that they let us live in it with them. And what I really am amazed by is how animals don't just survive but thrive living alongside us. And how they change their behavior, they change their movement patterns to live alongside us and go about making a living. And most of us don't even realize they're there. So there's everything from the fact that coyotes aren't necessarily nocturnal, but I've spent over 100 nights in all-nighters filming in downtown Toronto and New York, and it's incredible. They come out about 9 o'clock, Just as everybody has settled in and their TVs are on, they start walking through your backyard. Around 10, the raccoons come out. The foxes come out a little later. The deer come out around midnight. And I've spent so many nights just not even sitting in a blind, just sitting against the wheel of a parked car, watching a parade go by me. And it's unbelievable what we live with. And it's unbelievable to me how spending so much time with a lot of different animals, how they change their patterns, and to not be just out of our sight, but to exploit us. You know, one of the things that I'm about to show you is about crows who can pick an individual person out of a crowd. They know who bad people are. To the point that the American military, DARPA, funded studies so that they could use crows to pick out individuals so sharpshooters would kill them. So they're funding that research right now, and they're funding it because there's crows everywhere but Antarctica. So they want to do it in Afghanistan, they want to do it all over. And it's incredible how much better animals are leading the world than we are. So this is just a little bit from a film I made a few years ago called A Murder of Crows. You can just touch it, right? Here. Come on and touch it.
I'll put it into the polls today. How's that? And then you. Okay. Bear with us for 1 second.
This is the one thing you notice when you get older, your eyesight goes. Your eyesight is so fantastic. So you're going to have to go past the TV. That's it.
Crows are found on every continent except Antarctica. Wherever humans live, there they are. Their world intimately intertwines with ours, yet we know so little about them. They, on the other hand, seem fascinated with us.
The most surprising thing about crows has been their ability to recognize and remember particular people, and even just particular faces. They look, they think, they eyeball you. They really seem to be sizing up the situation. You walk outside now with a whole other perspective. Not just that you're moving through an animal's environment, but they're watching you and learning from you every step of the way.
Crows have an exceptional ability to pick a single face out of a crowd. But what's truly extraordinary is what the crows do with that knowledge.
One of the things that strikes me about animals is not just how little we know about them, but how almost every time we frame them, it's something bad, it's something to be feared, a murder of crows. It's crazy. We have everything, especially everything like black seems to be something to be feared, wolves. And I really hope in the films that I make that I can change people's perception of that. And I think you really do in your artwork too. That there's a sense of admiration for the things that you're portraying. It really comes through. And that's something I really want to do. The best compliment somebody can say to me after they've seen one of my films is, I never thought about an animal like that. And that's fantastic, because one, it means you're thinking about animals, and two, it means you're starting perhaps to respect them in a way that we've lost and we really need to bring back. So the whole fear thing, I really want, my life mission is to make people, don't be afraid of anything. It's just kind of crazy. And in terms of inspiration, I came up with the idea for making a film on crows. Mine comes very much from where I live, like you. I was sitting on my deck having coffee one morning, and a crow, the little baby crow, dropped onto the deck, and the dog lunged for it, which I, of course, lunged for the dog, and now I'm face to face with this little crow. And I realized it had blue eyes. And I knew, like, mammals had blue eyes when they were babies, but I didn't know crows had blue eyes, like black, blue eyes. And I'm staring at it as I'm holding the dog, trying to slowly back away, and he had no idea to be afraid of me. It was just, falling out of the nest, just fledged. And I got to stare at it for a good, get the dog in the house and stare at it for a good 15 minutes before I realized its mother figured out where it was and I better go back in the house so she would stop being upset about it. And so for me, most of the films I make start with one sentence. What the hell? I'm like, what the hell? They have blue eyes? Another evening, I'm sitting out on the deck, spend a lot of time on my deck, and I hear this strange cry. It's like a whoop, that kind of yip, yip, yip of a coyote, followed by a really good big deep howl. And I went out every night for 2 weeks. Every night at around 7:30 this would happen. And it was up on the hills behind my house. I live in Uxbridge, so in the rain. And it was like, I couldn't really see it, but I heard it clear as day, and it was a coyote and it was a wolf, and I thought, what the hell? And I started doing research, and I found out that this, Canada is the place, the birth of the toy wolf, a brand new species that's come on the landscape. A species that's reactive to man's hatred of wolves, and how they've managed to just find a way to survive. So I made a film about koi wolves called Meet the Koi Wolf, which I play a little clip from. And it's one of the things that we bonded over, this sort of complete fascination with coyotes. And I realized we'd had a very short, like 10-minute talk on the phone just to meet each other. And we got along house on fire right away, and then said we have to stop talking to each other. Because our inspirations come from the same point so much. And I think we have very much a similar take on nature, that it's to be embraced and needs to be not just admired, but respected and preserved. And that we really need to help society do a turn and do a bit of an about-face so that they see maybe the world a little bit like we do. And that's kind of the goal.
And just further on that, the thing with the koi wolf too is that there are species that, in a sense, we were the ones that had created the situation for koi wolves, because the wolves have been wiped out or decimated to a certain extent in eastern North America. So that's leaving this huge vacuum that nature hates a vacuum, and it will fill it with something. And if you wipe out all the top predators, then you still need, that job still needs to be done in some way. So it's remarkable in how, from what I understand, the short amount of time that this has happened. It's been since the koi wolves started.
I'm going to make you watch this because exactly.
Okay, I'll shut up.
What I picked, it's not sort of kind of a professional artist, so I shouldn't pick the art thing, but I actually picked a piece that's very much about the kind of science of how these animals came on, because most people really don't know about them. And most people what they do know is to be afraid, be very afraid. And there is, and this is one of your art pieces, is fantastic, where someone's feeding, or there's food on the table, there's fruit for the koi wolf. Because in almost every instance where there's been an interaction with koi wolves, they've been able to show that it's from feeding. Like when we start interfering with natural animal behavior, when people start doing that, animals start to think, I can approach you. You need food. You'll give me food. And their behavior starts to change. And an animal as smart as a coyote is not going to let an opportunity pass by if he's had at least one piece of success. He'll keep pushing. And that's where those interactions that were really in the news a few years ago started to happen, and it was tracked back to somebody feeding in the neighborhood. When I was making this film, I knew about people who were feeding, and I tried to tell them it's really bad. And the poor chap would go over the back fence when they saw a coyote. I don't get it, like a kid is going to be walking through it with his lunch, like you cannot be doing this. So I think sometimes we love nature wrong. It's not just about loving nature, it's about really respecting that this is a wild animal, and yeah, it's in your backyard, and yeah, it's in the city, but that doesn't mean it's not a wild animal. So I'm going to try again to play something. This is a little longer, so you guys can come with me.
Think. Despite being cautious of people, some scientists say even paranoid, coy wolves have slipped into our cities. And despite their size, these remarkable carnivores move undetected through our neighborhoods. Studying coy wolves is a new area of science and no easy task. These animals are difficult to spot, let alone research. Biologist John Pasapio has the inside track on how these creatures move through and exploit the urban landscape.
The resident female here is giving us really good data. She's currently on a 15-minute interval on her GPS collar.
Pasapio has managed to trap and put radio collars on a few coy wolves or eastern coyotes in and around Toronto.
The benefit of radio collaring and putting GPS collars on these eastern coyotes really does allow us to understand and look into their world in a very numeric fashion.
Her movements yesterday, she covered her entire territory in a single day, which is often the case. And we're going to try and meet up where she left off last night.
We have a flood of data coming in terms of locations, where they go, what they do, but there's also the reality that you're getting a glimpse of their personal lives.
The route we're taking here, most notably the underpass of the highway, it's a relatively safe access to where she's holding up in the middle of a highway cloverleaf. Obviously a really risky and dangerous place to get to, but she accesses it under the bridge we just went under. If she had to cross the road every day, she wouldn't last very long.
Despite all the technology, Pasapio rarely sees his study subjects.
There she goes.
The data shows us that this female comes here on a regular basis. Ironically, in the midst of the most people of all, that's where they find a place to rest and avoid people. There isn't anyone coming here. No dogs, no people. The roar of the highway never ends. It's 24 hours a day, but all of that's inanimate to the animals. They find a resting spot and they utilize these places.
The mystery of how the eastern coyote or coy wolf came to be is being investigated 200 miles to the north. Spent the best part of his career uncovering the evolution of coy wolves. Here, in over 3,000 square miles of protected wilderness, he and his team discovered the first evidence of a new hybrid, which many scientists doubted even existed.
This is the place where the eastern wolves first mated with the western coyote. This strip of land here, this is the birthplace of the coy wolf.
Professor White has been working closely with John Benson, a field biologist who has embedded himself in the Algonquin Wild in an effort to unlock the genetic code of the coy wolf. When Benson manages to trap and sedate one, it gives him a rare chance to examine the offspring of a coyote and a wolf up close.
What we found is that there is a lot of hybridization in the area between wolves and coyotes. Just a little over a third of the animals were hybrids in and around Algonquin Park. So there's a lot of animals that are mostly wolf, mostly coyote, but then there's a lot of hybrids as well. The question on a lot of people's minds is probably why would wolves breed with coyotes? And that's essentially the question we had when we started this project.
To understand the history of the coy wolf, you really got to go back to before Columbus set foot onto the continent, from the Mississippi over. So this whole eastern part of North America would have been deciduous forest. So forest plus deer. So the eastern wolf would have occupied all of this. So now Europeans come across, so massive movement of settlers. They cut down more and more of the trees. First thing they see is eastern wolves causing them problems with their livestock. These guys start killing wolves, poisoning programs, hunting. So as this whole area was deforested, de-wolfed, it provided opportunity.
Smaller coyotes from the southwest seized this opportunity and began to move northward, occupying territory now abandoned by wolves. The next 300 years saw coyotes arrive at one of the last safe havens for wolves, Algonquin Park. Here, the wolf population, depleted by persecution, began to see their natural enemy, the coyote, as a potential mate, which led to the birth of the coy wolf around 1919.
I know it's hard to watch animals being drugged. I find it really difficult, but I know his research is very much about, they're trying to figure out what this new species is about and how it came about. And Bradley White, this is the most brilliant man I've ever met, is a geneticist who spent his career trying to prove that there is a different kind of coyote here. And it's now being finally accepted. He's 7 years old. And it's now finally being accepted. And people doubted it forever. They thought it was just a red wolf or a gray wolf. So what amazes me is not just how we affect animals and their lives, both the good and the bad, and the bad, but also how they affect ours. And I think they really do everything from inspiring these fantastic artworks to, every time you look out your window and you see a bird feeder and your heart goes, oh, those are so beautiful, They just, I think there's such a they give so much, and we change them and they change us, and I just hope over time and into the future it becomes a fairer trade, because I don't think they're winning, and I think it really, like anything, it needs to really win. So that's kind of what propels me to. And you too, I guess.
Yeah. Should we get with that?
I'm done.
You're gonna. I could keep watching that all up. Sit here and have some popcorn and have coffee and watch more of both the crow and the coyote. But just further to what you were speaking about with it is Bradley White, the geneticist. Just recently I had a conversation with one of the guys up in my area, and he's a hunter. And there's a very deep prejudices against any of these wild canids that are out there, whether they resent the fact that the animals are being protected in the Algonquin area and a buffer zone around the area, and they just want to kill them for a whole bunch of different reasons. And there's what a lot of the people, not everyone, but there's significant bunch of them just figure that MNR dropped off or put these wolves there, that they're not even indigenous to the area, and that they need to be dealt with because they're not supposed to be there. And it's like, why would the Ministry of Natural Resources put a wolf in an area that it's not supposed to be in? That's just one of many, misconceptions about where these animals are, and you can show them, like, it's great that there's people like Bradley have like this evidence where you can put it in, and it's hard to dispute, but it will be disputed.
I've met those stories all over. It's incredible. The Newfoundlands are the best.
Oh, but
The Newfoundland government is planning things all over, apparently.
oh, right. Well, I know, it's always government. It's like, the realities of a lot of things is that they don't have the time or the money or anything to do things like this. So they don't have time or money to do things they're supposed to be doing, never mind dropping
Nature does
animals.
not do what governments want it to do. Yeah, no, I find it kind of amazing. And also, I find that there's such, like, nothing has been persecuted in pirates. And the idea that their reaction to persecution is to have larger litters, fewer coyotes. So it's kind of incredible. And finding one in the middle of Central Park is just a shocking film. They're everywhere now. They're not everywhere. They're moving.
It's amazing. I've seen,
And it all started here. That's the incredible thing.
I know, it's exciting, but what makes us excited, other people are going, no, we must get rid of it. But that goes to this whole idea of why the species came. And truly, with coyotes, you know that old adage, if you shoot one, two come to take its place, that is going to happen. So whether it's coyotes or raccoons or any of these other adaptable species, there's so many things to not only respect, but to look at, to learn from, just from a sense of, from ourselves as people, how you conduct yourself and how are we going to react to it. Because just killing things is not the way to go. That's really not the way.
So for me, it's when people say I changed their mind about killing things that I feel, as, okay, I'm doing my job. What is it that you want people to take away from your work with coyotes and other animals?
I think it would be along similar lines as far as if people take time to stop and contemplate what these scenarios are that I'm putting out there, like why is this animal doing what it is, or what is something about the situation that, you would not normally see any animal doing some of the things that are, maybe not, it's probably going to be, but what is the reason behind that, and what can you take away as far as thinking about a deeper understanding about your reaction to the animal, and as well as maybe sowing the seeds of curiosity about wanting to find more about whatever the animal is or whatever the situation is.
Well, I just, the piece around the corner with the fellows with the rabbits on it, in very regal pose in the forest. I'm just finishing a film on rabbits right now. So I really want to change the way people think about rabbits and hares. And for me, what I took away from that and was just so struck with is they're almost like on pedestals and they're important and they're given their moment. Because when I was pitching the film, I kept saying to the broadcasters, rabbits and hares are like the Rodney Dangerfields of the animal kingdom. They get no respect. Nobody thinks twice about a stupid rabbit or a hare. And one of the things I think we're going to be able to do in the film is change people's perception so they really start to recognize how important these animals are. Rabbits and hares are in steep decline all over the world except where they're not supposed to be, like Australia. But native rabbit populations, which are keystone species everywhere, are in major trouble. I was down in Washington State where there's only 13 pygmy rabbits left. Whereas in New England there's 100 million cottontails left and multi-million-dollar operations are underway to bring these species back because so many animals feed on them. And they've used so much in the environment, but because they're rabbits, or hares, no one really thinks twice about them. And so when I saw them given the royal treatment, I was like, oh, thank God.
Well, that piece too, with some of this furniture that I've been incorporating into artworks, the reason I started using some of these French design type influence from the 16th century onward was because it was that point of intersection between the Americas and the old world and the new world, and then that cross-pollination of these things. When this situation started to happen with species, with cultures, and so forth, and so I used that as a way to situate the animals, and there was that one piece that, with the beavers on it, which was the confidant sofa, and there's different versions of that. There's 2-seaters, and there's 3-seaters, and 4-seaters. But then I wanted to know, why don't I do 7? I was like, next time I come up with an idea, just someone stop me. But that was the idea for the form of that particular piece, as far as, but instead of having the fine woodworking, I thought, no, I'm going to try and put a bit more of the natural habitat from the boreal forest, or just from northern, not specifically boreal in this case, because boreal is farther north from where we are. But to have that idea of the conversation that goes on between all these different species and the importance that each of them has in that conversation. So really, it could be like way larger than a 7-seater.
It's so, we're really so interconnected. We have no idea. I loved it. I was like, I was drawn to it. We walked all the way down to it. It's just fantastic.
She goes to visit those saucy little hair. But those, I know that, and that was with the piece Locavore that was at Fulton University. It's that inversion of what we originally thought, like with lynx, for example, I think is one we probably deal with in the show.
Months following lynx chasing snowshoe hare.
That would
You think it's great, but it's maker for you.
I was going to say, I was thinking, oh, that must have been so cool.
Very cool. But so cool. And I'm just, and it's another one of those stories where science is just showing how hares, who you think are on everybody's dinner menu, and these defenseless little creatures, this is going to come out in the film on April 7th, on the nature of things, is the hares are turning the tables on the whole situation. And they're turning the tables on the predators and controlling the game. So everyone always thinks, oh, poor hare, and it's like, that lynx is beholden to them here. That the hares are determining how many lynx are going to survive. They inhibit their reproduction when they starve out their predators. They don't just starve them out for a year. They wait 2-3 more years after the numbers drop to really make sure that they're in trouble. And then they decide, the signal goes out across them all, because they don't just do this in one area, they do it everywhere. And they start reproduction guns, and they pump out their numbers so that they're so big by the time the lynx can possibly catch up that they'll be okay for 10 years. And it's a 10-year boom bust cycle. And it's controlled by the hares. And that is science just coming out. When you learn that, you think, holy crap, how much is going on, the interplay between animals and other world we just do not know about.
That's about the cycle of beavers in some area, not so much the beavers dying, but when I view beavers as kind of like gardeners in a way, where they'll eat everything in a certain area and all the things that, because they like specific kinds of plants, but once they've kind of eaten everything in that area and they can't access them anymore, then they move on to another area, and then as the family moves around, possibly not the same beavers, although some beavers can live very long, but it's that 10-year cycle that it takes for some of the plants to regenerate enough. So I think that when I got my property, probably it was at the end of that cycle, and they just came in like the next year, it was like, oh, I was ready to eat again.
Yeah.
But there's so many things like with beavers, so that was one of the things that I was thinking of, like, okay, that was horrifying, or it made you nervous. I wasn't fearful, but I was nervous when I saw the water coming out. But then I took that as an opportunity to research, well, what can I do? And there's so many things you can do to deal with beaver activity. And again, just killing them does not, it might solve the problem in the short term, and my neighbors constantly do that, so that's irksome, but they can do that. I'm not allowed to do anything about that. I have since learned. It just takes a little bit of effort, and not much, to control the water levels. Like, we can out-engineer the engineers, and it's so simple. And so I've got beaver bafflers that run through the dam, like the water level control devices, so that the water can get up to a certain level, but then and some people have even hooked up little mini hydroelectric generators if you have enough water flow, so then you're getting electricity from the beavers. So that was, I would love to, I don't have enough water flow on my property to do that, but
But just the animals that bring in, being able to see which is in the backyard,
Oh, yeah.
and the herons, and
It creates habitat and everything for so many other species, but also they have other scientists who've been studying things to do with, situations to do with drought, and there is nothing that people have come up with that is better than beaver activity that can retain water within an ecosystem. And place after place after place has been decimated because of human activity. And then there's the problems with the water. And it's like, well, if you stop killing your beavers, because then it's like, if there's certain areas, if it's suitable habitat, it's like that field of dreams or whatever, that they will come, right? And if you let them do their job and learn a way to coexist with that, so they do their thing and you do their thing, the land will be much better, and it will, in the long run, it will support not only them, but us, as far as agriculture and healthy environment, all kinds of things.
So I'm curious because I know what I went up against. Yeah, do you mind using? Oh, sorry. What I run up against is, like, even making a film about coyotes and crows, people are like, oh, coyotes, you know, they're like, coyotes or crows. Oh, I took 7 years for crows. I got turned around so much. Everybody hated crows. They're the best. No, now, like, they're black, now they're scary. Do you run into that with your artwork, where people go, oh, we love you to make something, but we want you to make a pretty animal. We want an owl, we don't want a coyote.
People do love owls.
They love them.
They haven't had to clean up owl pellets. I love owl pellets though. I haven't run into that too much. I do get more, sometimes feedback or reaction about certain animals, but it has been surprisingly positive on the whole as far as reaction, and even public interaction with some of the wolf characters. So I don't know if there's something about a wolf that people find more acceptable than a coyote, because maybe there's some sort of semblance of more nobility or something. They do a very similar job. And their job is nasty, there's no question about it. You don't, any predator, when you see something killed, it's never quiet and quick, and it's not like,
It's nothing personal.
yeah, that's their job. And if we take away these animals, then we have to be prepared to take over their job, and we can, because we don't. Again, it goes to these things of these intricacies of what you're able to parse out through your research and through the documentaries that you do, which is so fantastic. So.
Well, I was, before this film that I picked, just finishing on rabbits, I did a film on red foxes. And I spent a lot of time in the house on red foxes. And when you live in Canada, you kind of think, not everything's like Canada, but you get the sense of wolves and wolves. And the largest carnivore in England is a red fox. It's so small, it's, 25 pounds. That's the largest carnivore. Isn't that just shocking? Like, we just don't want to go there. And that's from just hunting.
Yeah, I think wolves, the last wolf was killed over 500 years ago, I think, in the UK. And what I find particularly pleasing is that wolves are repopulating France, and it's causing havoc. Not that I want it to cause havoc, but there's the polarity of opinion within people in France, because they've had wolves up until about 100 years ago, and I was surprised that there's wolves in Spain and Italy that have been coming in sort of through Provence, and over the last 10 years, their population is getting quite large. So now the French are going, oh my God, it's only a matter of time that they're in Paris. And it's like, oh, that could be true too. But the tolerance is very low in certain areas, because it's the usual thing. The people who are suffering at the hands and suffer the predation, which is the sheep farmers and so forth, are not tolerant, and so they're advocating that, wolves are a protected species there, but now they've gone from, wolves are great, sheep farmers probably never said that, but to wanting to be able to shoot them on sight. And there's, anyway, so that's, apparently about a year ago, I think sheep farmers were on a demonstration in Lyon, trucked in like over 10,000 sheep into downtown Lyon as a protest, because they wanted to be able to kill the wolves. So it's interesting in the way that with my artwork and the public artwork, which is primarily like, I started doing public artwork because I love doing bronze and it's a natural sort of venue for it, but also the fact of the matter is that there's not a lot of people that actually darken the doors of a lot of museums and galleries, so having the artwork out there is a way, my little outreach initiative, I guess, to start presenting these different ideas and these animals in a light that would be, not just a positive light, but a light that would provoke consideration of them. So
Thank you for that, particularly on behalf of Quills. So have a bet. So what's next for you?
more exhibitions and so forth. So, which it was ever thus, it's good though. So yes, I have more exhibitions coming up over the next couple of years. And probably public artwork eventually too. But I have to fix that pipe in the beaver dam. They do have to, you have to kind of clean them out a little bit, they'll get clogged up. But, if anyone ever needs to know about the ways to deal with beavers, or about bronze, you can come to me.
So maybe now's a good time to open it up in case anyone has any questions for Marianne or Susan.
My master's thesis was about urban foxes in Toronto in digital geographies. I teach here at OCAD, and our work also references urban animals. And since you did your last, what happened during the course of that project, which ended in about 2003, was that from a backyard in the beaches full of foxes moving through the ravine, it went to almost none. They died of an epidemic of sarcoptic beige.
Yes.
In fact, I noticed one of the koi wolves looked a little mangy, and I wondered if you could provide a bit of an update about what has happened since then. You talk about the cycle of,
And mange is a big cycle that moves through and really weakens and drops off the population.
how does that work? Yeah.
Well, it's like a virus, not a virus, I shouldn't say, it's like a mite, and it's treatable, but you have to trap the animals, and just like you do with your dog, you know, when you put that stuff down their back,
Right.
that treats it. So for some animals, they're willing to do that. They were doing it with the koi wolves because it was so important to figure out what these animals were, so they were doing it then. And I know even raccoons even have it, and it's almost like whenever you're being filmed on something, they start to move into the mange period, so they go from massive numbers to very few. And they were having distemper at the time I was making that film too, which is really bad. But I believe the fox population is just starting to come back, and the koi wolf population is really healthy now. It went through a real period too. And it doesn't just happen here, it happens everywhere. And it's very much just like a soil-based mite that, it moves through, and it's a terrible way to die. It moves over firm.
I know, I've reported a lot of...
It's really awful. It's really awful.
Yeah.
It's not as bad as ticks on deer, but it's really awful.
Winter ticks.
Winter ticks are just bad. It's just an awful way to die. So yeah, it is sort of now moved into being, I'm not sure if it was ever thus, but it's moved into being a cyclical thing that really hits most mammal populations. That live, it happens in the wild too. It's just the proximity in the city for living conditions is so much closer, usually, that it sort of makes it happen faster than it does in the wild. They don't tend to live so close together in the wild, and so it's not shared as much. They don't have the same food sources in the wild either. And that's been a huge study that was done in Chicago, figuring out how food sources can spread disease because they all come to certain restaurant garbage sites that are great, or the only patch of this kind of plant that comes on in the early spring, that kind of stuff. So they get drawn into close quarters more in the city than they would in the wild.
And just further to what you were saying, was it the biologists who were treating the koi wolves with like the whatever it is, the Bravo or ivermectin or...
It's basically ivermectin.
Okay, and were they doing that because they were studying subjects, or were they doing it in an effort to help maybe not have it spread to like domestic animals?
I think it's probably both. You want your study subjects to survive, but you also want them to live in a healthy world, so.
Thinking from the standpoint of global warming, and the idea of the canary and coal mine, I think like people polar bears in that kind of regard. I'm wondering if there are other species out there which are starting to fit that idea.
I think everyone knows that the starving polar bear image, and it was so powerful, and for that, it really had an impact. But there's so many animals that are dealing with it. I was filming Arctic foxes a couple of years ago when I was making a fox film up on the tundra outside of Churchill. And one of the ways animals both exploit and make problems is that red foxes are, because of global warming, the tundra freeze lines are moving back. Because of that landscape, there's not very many dens. It's hard to dig. So Arctic foxes predominantly had all the dens up through that area. But because of global warming, red foxes were moving in, and they're moving in further and further, and they're bigger, and they're kicking Arctic foxes out of the dens, and they can't make a new one. So they're really impacting the population. Snowshoe hare, I was just filming them in the Yukon, and they very much timed their color change, their coat change with the snow. But because of global warming, there's perfectly white snowshoe hare sitting on dirt, and they're getting picked off like crazy. And it's affecting how the cycles normally work. But I have to say, a really heartening thing happened the other day. I was at the CBC giving a lecture. It was like a take your kid to work day thing. So we were showing all the kids our equipment and some films and what it's like to be a natural filmmaker. And these were like 15-year-old kids, 14, 15-year-old kids. And so there's this room full of people, and then we have the question period after. And the first question was from this kid who couldn't have been more than 14, and he said, "How does global warming affect animals? I'm really worried." And I thought, oh, they're paying attention. That's, there might be hope. It's so widespread all the way through. And even down to, microbial, like fungi, and it's on so many levels we'll never understand.
The amount of animals, just going to add, speaking about that thing with the foxes moving up, but even in this area, there's animals that didn't used to be here, that probably everyone's now has been seeing, possums and things like that, which used to be like a southern animal.
Yeah.
So the way that everything is shifting, these species up in Haliburton, the area used to be, I guess it used to be sort of a boundary of, it's like a land in between some of the southern more species and northern, and now there's just like quite a flux of other things that there won't be any place like, and I'm speaking not mainly of like, partly about things like salamanders, things like
right.
That there won't be any more habitat or place for them to live because they're so specifically designed to exist.
Like the
and they can't survive the competition. Like I saw the picture of baby Richard.
Well, the red fox rode Arctic fox in the snow. Yeah, that's scary. I was a dentist in London.
That was a dentist in London.
It was on one of those tracks and we took that photo, and what's really weird, because I'm out all the time filming, every day in blinds. I don't think I'm going to die. Like I was out in the Yukon, and everyone said, "Aren't you worried that grizzly bears are waking up?" And I'm like, I'm not worried about this. Next month I have to go to Missouri and film rabbits swimming in a swamp. And they have ticks there. Ticks like crazy. And if they bite you, you can never eat red meat again. I'm not going to die by the glorious paws of a grizzly bear. It's going to be some damn tick.
Because I think in part because of the lack of hunting in Toronto, the Humber water system is a wonderful environment for quails, coyotes.
Someone told me there's salmon. Gave me a picture of salmon. Yeah,
there's salmon.
Like a fake salmon. I was so shocked.
Salmon run there. There's a deer population in there as well.
Well, salmon have been introduced though.
Yeah,
were they?
Yeah.
There used to be salmon here, and then so M&R did introduce.
They were extirpated. The salmon. Yeah. But it seems like the urban raccoons also is a boon to these species, but it's also a danger,
Yeah.
I would think.
Well, I think just because the food source is so easy for raccoons. It was so funny, I made that film and every year I get a call, would you talk to us about how to design our green bins? Just look at a raccoon's butt. All it does is lean against it and knock it over. That's how they do it. Because I'd spent so many nights following raccoons and filming and knocking over green bins. But the populations here, I have to say, in Toronto, are greater than anywhere else I've been all over filming them. Toronto is crazy. And sometimes when I go places and people ask me what films I've made, like in Europe, and I'll say raccoons, they go, oh, wow, raccoons. I'm like, no, you don't want to see that. Numbers are really cool, but you don't want to.
Do white wolves go after raccoons? Because I'm thinking where I live, I have hardly any raccoons in the raccoons where I am are
They're much more
tiny
secretive.
compared to the city raccoons.
Yeah, they're much more secretive in the country. They do, but raccoons are not easy to kill. It's a hard kill. Because they're really fierce. I mean, they have really good nails. So it has to be a very smart and persistent coyote. A coyote, it has to be coyote.
I was really wondering about that myself too, because I've lived in the same house for 19 years, and it's just like in Queen Ossington area. But I go out my backyard, and it's a tiny backyard, and there's these tall fences, and there's almost always raccoons sitting like on the fence and on the garage at the back, and there's hardly any anymore. I mean, I see possums now and stuff, but I was just wondering, like,
Probably the Mitch cyclone.
Yeah.
That really wipes them out.
I have a lot in my backyard. One walks by my window every day. And just looks in at me like, and then wanders along. But I have about probably, then the babies come right in the spring. So I've had like 8 coming and going. The big ones and then the little ones, you can see them
I mean,
going
you're
up.
cute, he's sick. You're so cute, yeah.
Very curious. But yeah, so that's sort of Roncesvalles.
Oh,
So
yeah, you're really,
there's a lot there.
there's a lot there. The Roncesvalles and the beaches are the two Toronto areas that are just really crazy numbers. Do you think you're lucky what you have, or does it go to you?
It has bumped me over time, but I don't mind them being here now. It's pretty good. But what they used to do is climb up to the top flat roof and onto the roof outside my daughter's bedroom window. That was around really pleasant.
Yeah.
But they used to always come and say, "Oh, look, that's such a great view." It's just, oh, right. Okay. Guess someone's got to go through and deal with it. So that was really irritating.
Really careful.
I do know that. That's another reason, actually, I kind of let the rain do whatever it was going to do. I really didn't get out there and handle it because I was concerned.
Yeah, and it's airports. Airports are giant too.
Okay, well, that has moved on and planned, had a different path or different behavior. So we have a kind of understanding. It's okay at the moment.
Yes.
what are the conversations around living in an urban environment with these animals? You know, it's like, people talk about planting flowers for bees, like, it's just a really complicated conversation, and, I'm not hearing it being spoken other than what's there or what's not there, but, is there a way to let some animals, like to interact with them in a more collaborative way, rather than they're okay unless they're doing something to me and then I need to sort of stop that, or like, is there more?
Yeah, I might have an unpopular view on that, but I think let them be. They'll figure out how to survive. When we start trying to intervene, I put a toad house out if you want, I have no problem with that. But if you start trying to find places, build something like a hutch that, the raccoons or the foxes can hide in, they'll figure it out. They're really smart. They're really adaptive.
I'm not necessarily talking about that per se, but I feel like it's either that we just totally ignore them, or until they're a problem, and then we just kill them and get rid of them. And I'm wondering if there's like somewhere in between that is a way to shift maybe what our perception of the problem is, or to understand understand what they're giving us, so I think like that more of that kind of conversation.
You want to take that?
No.
I think, my hope is that the artwork that Mary Ann does and the films that I do start that conversation. I think it's very much my goal.
I guess that would be it as far as starting the conversation between people of that idea that they're here, as opposed to, I get what you're saying as far as it seems that if people aren't aware of a problem, until it becomes a problem, suddenly, there's all these coyotes and stuff like that. So, artwork, certainly television, that's a great
Television,
way.
but also I really think there's a role through school, like particularly grade schools, to just introduce kids to their environment and what's in it, and have a respect for it, because that's not really there. Like if you learned from a young age, like that this is this, and they do that, and isn't that cool? You're not going to throw a rock at it. Hopefully. So I think that kind of, and I don't know if that really happens, but I really wish it would. Like if there was ways to have, you go to a zoo, but you don't need to. Like you can literally go down your street and see all these cool things. And if that was happening in schools, I would really put my effort and stars behind it. Like I think that's the time to do it. Because you're right, it really only comes out when there's a problem. And what's shocked me is that most of the time we have no idea. Like we have no idea. I would be filming people. I'd be following a coyote walking down a city street and film 5 people walking by and the next people, and they turn to me and go, "What are you doing?" I'm filming the coyote. And in turn. And it happens all the time. Like we're so unaware of our environment. And I don't know how you can help outside of exhibits like this, which is really important for just making people think. I don't know how else to do that. What do you think?
I don't know, I've been thinking about it a lot actually, and also my own, response to the squirrels in the attic, and I'm curious, but I really love what you were saying about just this learning to be in the environment in a way where we're noticing actually what we're living with, and not just kind of moving through it as A to B, and, kind of absorbing it in a different way.
Yeah.
I think changing our behavior too, like not eating burgers, not letting your little kitten out for the dogs in the park and the signs and things kind of.
Yeah.
So that, getting their acknowledgement.
Yeah.
There.
And it's just that basic respect.
And understanding that, it's wild, or there's wild elements that we have to change our behavior to interact.
I often wondered, I had this idea, this great idea a long time ago from talking this, that it would be really cool, because I've just been into, predominantly just making films on urban wildlife, urban ecology for the last 10 years. I thought it would be really fun as an art project, and you guys are all artists, to have these kind of spherical eggs that if you walk past, a video would play and you'd see what was in that neighborhood. Like you'd see a coyote go by, or a certain kind of bird, just so that you realize they're here. Like I might not see it right now, but they're here, and you might start looking and see stuff. Like just to be something public art based, where it just tells you, hey, it's all around us. Because people, that's the thing I keep running against. People go, oh, I had no idea. We keep saying that, like I'm 56 years old, we keep saying that. We have to have an idea. So I think that would be really neat.
There's actually emphasis at the school boards right now on nature and conservation is a huge focus for school boards. So I'm at the McMichael and we're getting lots of classes coming. We're designing a course called Footprints for the Future, where the kids are doing art and nature combined outside. So there's a lot of it happening right now in the school boards.
And it's at that level too, where they're probably seeing it, like they don't move through the world at the pace or with their phone, facing the phone, hopefully.
Yeah, no, they're doing it at grade school levels and a lot of school levels.
Oh, that's
In the
fantastic.
city as well.
Yeah, well, we're like all the kids come from the GDSP and Vaughan and everywhere else. They're all in the school board, right? So it's schools.
And are you guys focusing on things, not to put you on the spot, but are you focusing on things that are in the urban wildlife, or are you focusing on just like the micro, more?
Well, I mean, they're doing a focus on the particular environment they're in, so looking at the news and things. So there's also their immediate surroundings and understanding it through you would create a process, and how would you interpret the nature of the environment. So I mean, there's no reason why that kind of methodology doesn't apply to any of the nature in nature.
Nellie Wild did that fantastic installation at Canby with all of the fish that are, did you see that? Isn't that unbelievable? Where is it?
It's in Vancouver.
In Vancouver. What is that place called? It's by the Emily Carr School. It's like a Canby underbridge, and she projected fish, like you see salmon, and all these fish that are right in that area onto this bridge. It was this huge projection, it was a massive undertaking.
And it was really beautiful and so awe-inspiring about what was around you that you just wouldn't have known if you hadn't like seen these projections. There's another question.
Okay, this may have kind of been answered. I'm having a little bit of trouble hearing back here, but that's okay. So your goal with your artwork is to create more awareness of the urban wildlife that would be around people. If that's correct?
Yes.
So hypothetically, is there a second tier to that? So if everyone then became aware, do your artwork, would there be another goal to that? Or is...
For me, for me, I'm very much aligned with broadcasters like the CBC and PBS Nature that have a huge educational component. So this stuff goes out to schools pretty much for free. And they have learning components that are drafted for it, and so there's a real follow through, at least on a kind of grade school, high school educational level for the things that I do most of the time. How about you, Marianne?
Well, as far as what's next after
what's
achieving awareness?
Yeah.
Well, I think that there's still also that point about there's still so much to be uncovered and learned, and it's an evolving thing, like with my own artwork for myself too, as far as the discovery and the research that I do with the different topics that I'm engaged with. So I guess I just evolve along with the artwork, and hopefully my artwork evolves along with me. So that goal is, I think there will always, within my lifetime, I think there's still so much to be achieved, so that unless I live to be really old, I don't think so. There's always going to be something.
So I think we have time for one more question. If anyone has a burning question they want to ask.
I noticed that you haven't mentioned mice yet, because they're sort of everywhere, but it's how do you get the value?
Oh, it's in my research files. Okay, you can't tell anyone this. Because I really think this is a great point. There's actually societies in England where people, you know how there's dog shows and they have these fancy mice. And I want to call it a mice and men, because all over British men. Fancy mice. Well, thank you guys for coming out on such a cold night.